2022 Annual Operating Budget and 2022-2031 Capital Improvement Program.
Good evening, council members. My name is Elizabeth Goldtree. I'm the budget officer in the Department of Finance, and this evening I'll be presenting an overview of the operating budget and capital improvement program. Just a reminder, our budget is available online at wichita.gov. You can also find hard copies of the budget at all of our Wichita Public Library locations and also here at City Hall on the 12th floor. A little bit about the budget calendar and upcoming opportunities for engagement in addition to tonight. The budget was presented on July 20th. Today is August 5th, and this is our evening public hearing. We'll have another public hearing during the City Council meeting on August 17th. And then on August 24th is our final public hearing, as well as adoption of the operating budget and the capital improvement program. A quick overview of the budget and CIP. The total proposed mill levy for the debt service fund and the general fund combined is flat at 32.749 mills. The budget is balanced for all 3 years, 2021 through 2023. We are able to use ARPA funding to support the budget and the capital improvement program, and I'll go into that a little bit later in some upcoming slides. And the CIP is within debt parameters. A little bit about ARPA. The City of Wichita has received funding from U.S. Treasury, and we're able to spend that over through 2024. Initially, we plan on using the funding to fill vacant positions that we wouldn't have otherwise been able to fill during the budget period. We'll be using ARPA funding to fund several operating budget initiatives, and we'll also be using it to stabilize the general fund in 2023 and 2024. On the capital side, we'll be using ARPA to fund some capital projects, such as fire station, police stations, the fire alerting system, as well as the library renovation projects. And lastly, it includes, preliminarily, the plan is to use $20 million in funding for community investments. The community investments concepts at this point are affordable housing, small business and entrepreneurial development, and workforce development and training. We presented concepts at the DAB meetings in June, as well as during the social media town hall on June 22nd. That event included videos with subject matter experts about the topics. The feedback that we received during that time, affordable housing was the most preferred topic, and then small business and entrepreneurial development and workforce development and training came in very close to each other. So looking at ARPA funding from a tabular standpoint, is a total of $72.4 million. The top line and the second line are the lines that will be supporting the general fund as well as the bottom line. And then the infrastructure projects are those CIP projects that I mentioned earlier. And then the community investments is the $20 million that we're considering for those three concepts. So on to the operating budget. These pie charts are for what we can call the all fund summary. So this is all of the funds that we appropriate each year in the budget. So it includes the general fund as well as our utilities and so forth. You'll see on the revenue side that our biggest source of revenue is charges for services. That is mostly water and sewer revenue, followed by property tax for the general fund and the debt service fund. On the expenditure side, our biggest expenditure group is salaries and benefits, and you'll see in the general fund that that's an even larger slice in that fund. And in the general fund, our biggest source of revenue is property tax. I always like to point out to folks that our second biggest source of revenue is franchise fees, because sometimes that gets mixed in the mix. And our third largest source of revenue in the general fund is sales tax. Over on the expenditure side for the general fund, by far our largest expenditure item is salaries and benefits. It's 3/4 of general fund expenditures. We're very much we have a lot of employees providing a lot of services every day. So both in regards to the CIP and the operating budget, the city mission statement guides everything we do. I'll just pause for a moment and remind everybody, it's just, as an exceptionally well-run city, we'll keep Wichita safe, grow our economy, build and maintain infrastructure, and provide conditions for living well. We have grouped highlights for the budget and CIP by each of these mission statement areas. But first, an overview of the CIP. It is aligned to the city mission statements and as well as the goals of the community investment plan. That plan prioritizes investments, and we're pleased to announce that 80.6% of capital improvement funding or projects are aligned to the very high priority in the CIP. Additionally, over a third of projects aligned to the maintain and replace priority that's in the community investments plan. Again, the CIP is sustainable based on our debt metrics. You can find more of that in the financial summary section of the CIP, and it's consistent with prior policy decisions regarding, for example, the aquatics master plan, or whether it is decisions that we've made about water and sewer rates or previously included CIP projects from prior years. Similar to the all fund summary pie chart, the biggest source of revenue for the CIP is by far water and sewer revenues, followed by local sales tax and special assessments. Just a reminder again about CIP policy parameters. Last year, the decision was made during the budget development process to shift 0.5 mils from the debt service fund to the general fund in order to be sustainable in light of headwinds we were facing due to the pandemic. Because of ARPA funding for capital projects, we're able to keep the mill levy for the debt service fund at 7 mils during this planning period. So that provides us more capacity on the general fund side. The water and sewer rates that are used to model the CIP are consistent with the models that Public Works and Utilities has provided to the City Council, and our GO at-large debt levels are consistent with the guidelines that we operate under, and that's general obligation at-large debt for projects such as parks, police, fire stations, and building improvements that aren't funded by utilities or local sales tax. This next set of slides groups budget and CIP highlights by mission statement focus area. More so every year we integrate the CIP and the operating budget closer together, and I think that these points really emphasize that. On the operating budget side, we're able to fund the fire response optimization initiative that's underway right now, so that when those results are available, we'll be able to fund implementation. We're also funding the retention of 12 grant-funded firefighters. That funding will expire early next year. The grant funding will expire early next year, so we'll retain those. The CIP includes funding for the replacement of 4 police stations and the construction of 6 fire stations. It funds the Violence Interrupter Initiative, and 7 police officer positions are added, in addition to community support specialists and positions in the lab. Aligning to the Grow Our Economy portion of the mission statement, the operating budget funds the Small Business Portal and the Economic Development Fund. Something that's pretty exciting is this marks the conclusion of the revenue collection period for the Gilbert and Mosley TIF. That TIF will remain open as long as environmental remediation efforts are ongoing, but this is definitely something to celebrate. That was a very innovative project at the time. Also aligning to the Grow Our Economy part of the mission statement in the CIP is the funding of improvements to the West Street Corridor and the North Junction. Both of these have also funding from the state of Kansas, and we've also received funding from the county for the North Junction project. In the dependable infrastructure area, we continue to increase street maintenance funding in the CIP each year. Over a 10-year period, there will be $163 million dedicated for street maintenance. Similarly, we are continuing to fund maintenance for our buildings. The CIP includes over $37 million over 10 years to maintain our facilities. And additionally, the CIP includes considerable number of water and sewer projects. The largest in this CIP is the bionutrient removal project for sewer. In the living well area, we were able to develop a budget that restores a lot of previous reductions to services in the living well focus area, including there was a reduction to library materials last year, to tree trimming and tree planting, and all of those restorations are included in this budget. Something notable in the operating budget this year is the merging of the cultural arts services with the park and recreation services. This is to enhance service, to create synergies, to improve marketing efforts. This is an outgrowth of the Wichita State University study that was presented to the City Council and the County Commission on June 22nd. And finally, there's some significant park and recreation projects that are included in the CIP for the first time. Those are improvements at South Lakes to create a pickleplex, phase 1 of the LW CLAP master plan implementation, and an updated facility at McAdams Park. And so the next 3 slides are related to elements of the operating budget that are on our highlights page at the very front. So I'll step through those. And so the 2022 budget regarding Century 2, the 2022 proposed budget reflects the transition to contract management for this facility. Contracted management is expected to enhance the customer experience and utilize synergies to improve results, such as having more shows and acts come to the facility. What you will find in the budget is it reflects decreasing the annual subsidy for that facility from $2.4 million per year to $0.8 million per year. Regarding golf, which is another budget highlight on that first page, at this point, the City of Wichita is pursuing contracted management in order to leverage best practices and improve the overall long-term sustainability of that fund. The concept is that enhanced performance will support course and facility improvements. There are a considerable number of deferred maintenance at our golf courses, and even though there's a new project related to 2 of the courses, it really just scratches the surface when it comes to those facility issues. Requests for proposal have been issued, and then any recommendations will be coordinated with the park board. And the last budget highlight is related to entry-level wages. There are some permanent full-time positions that have entry-level wages at steps that are below $15 an hour. The budget includes funding to start full-time permanent new hires at the first step that's above $15 an hour. And additionally, the city will be coordinating with unions on implementation of this effort with regard to existing staff. So just a reminder, the upcoming public hearings on the budget will be on August 17th, and then on August 24th is a public hearing and the adoption of the operating budget in the capital improvement program. And the good news is that the recommended action for this meeting is much shorter than on July 20th. It is to receive public comment on the 2022-2023 proposed budget, as well as the 2022-2031 proposed CIP.
Okay.
Much shorter
We would be glad
recommended
to answer
action.
any questions.
Yeah,
Well, normally
do you
she
have-
looks up when she's done,
Yeah,
so I didn't
I'm
know if you
done.
were still
Yeah.
reading
No,
something.
that's it.
But thank you.
You know,
for
the
that.
recommended action last time was a little bit longer.
Yes,
This
yes, of
one's
course.
a lot shorter. We're just here to listen tonight, so.
Well, and we're really just happy to see so many people showing up tonight for this opportunity to have some dialogue and get some feedback on our budget. So, but before we do, is there any questions from the bench for staff? All right, we'll see none. So with that, thank you, Elizabeth. I'm sure we'll have questions for you as the night goes on. So the way for folks who might be new, how we normally do this is when you have an item on the agenda, we only have one item. You come up and you can speak for 5 minutes. We ask that you allow us to address any questions at the end. We don't want to take up any of your time, so we can direct those questions to staff or to people on the bench. Also, if you go over your 5 minutes, you can complete your thought. No one's going to get cut off, so long as I might ask you to wrap it up if you go too far over 5 minutes. But we want to really utilize this time to get some feedback. So with that, we're opening it up to public comment. Yeah, but we want to be socially distant. So when someone's up, we can get one person on deck, and then we can keep it that way instead of. So how do we do on deck? Just stand right over there, I guess. I don't know. We'll get through it though. We've been through crazier meetings. Welcome.
My name's Donna Worth, and I'm from zip code 67215. It appears that this proposed operating budget lacks the controversy that I have seen in prior budgets. There's no one here protesting the defunding of City Arts or Cowtown, no library branches being closed, no fire trucks or crews being eliminated, no swimming pools being permanently closed. And I believe the American Rescue Plan dollars are a huge reason why. However, after reviewing the 664 pages of the city's operating budget, I believe that there are still reasons that this budget is problematic. First, as the budget document says, it is crucial to recognize that the exhaustion of ARPA funds expected in 2024 is expected to renew general fund challenges beginning in 2025, thus a structurally imbalanced general fund. Then one has to take note that this proposed budget has actually reduced funding for some departments and operations. Even though the budget, and I quote, is based initially on providing complete funding for budgeted activities and positions, a shrinkage adjustment is applied to several general fund departments. So certain departments have been given budget reductions that they have to fulfill. I quote, this encourages departments to best determine when to fill positions and what expenditures to curtail in order to meet departmental objectives. Shrinkage or budget reductions are to occur in the following departments totaling $8.2 million. Those departments are cultural arts, parks and recreation, library, police, public utilities and services, and other. Additionally, the following instances in the budget are also problematic to me. Contracting the convention center operations. Stated reasons were to reduce subsidies and improve building maintenance. Money meant to maintain Century 2 has been and continues to be siphoned off to pay the debt of James Corrick for the Fairfield Inn. That debt payment will continue even with Century 2 privatization. Plus, what is the cost of the delayed or postponed maintenance from the past 12 years if it is to be performed by the city before a management service takes over? Or will there be subsidies to the contractor if the contractor is expected to perform those same maintenance activities? Remember the lesson of the ice rink. It has been allowed to be in disrepair while the contractor still owes us money. Another item, the debt service fund. New debt services are increasing by $15 million in 2023. Temporary notes are increasing by $18 million in 2022. And total expenditures exceed total revenues by $20 million in 2022, thus a budgeted loss. Plus, there is an $18 million drop in the fund balance to only $2.1 million in 2022 and only $1.5 million in 2023. To me, these figures are problematic. Also, the Economic Development Fund. This fund is for tracking industrial revenue bond fees and property management. It is showing a continuing operating loss. The statement made is that a higher level of property sales would impact the fund balance favorably. So will we be seeing more taxpayer-owned property sold? And will we see our property sold at less than market value? There are still problems with some TIF districts, which has a bearing on the problems with the debt service fund. There are a combination of operating losses, arrears and deficits and debt payments, and the potential need to repay millions to developers. With only 5 minutes, I cannot tell you all the things that are concerning to me in this budget, so I ask that each of you pose the questions to the staff to ascertain how they intend to address all the unusual fluctuations in certain budgets and funds. And please definitely ask questions about a large number of those fluctuations in areas only called other. Other is not a satisfactory explanation. Thank you.
Mr. Manager.
Mr. Mayor, if you don't mind, there are two issues that Ms. Worth talked about that come up frequently that I wouldn't mind having a staff response. One is the concept of shrinkage and what that means and how we've refined that over the years. And then the second has to do with debt, because I know a lot of people have expressed concerns about debt, and I'd like to have staff talk about that.
Thank you, Manager. Good evening, Mayor, members of the City Council. Mark Manning, the Department of Finance. Yes, sir. Let me explain shrinkage, and she quoted the budget accurately. We do include shrinkage in the city budget, much like the state of Kansas does. Shrinkage is a amount that reflects the fact that our positions are never 100% filled, and so it can occur naturally whenever we have turnover. Sometimes when we have turnover, we hire people at lower wages than what the incumbent made, particularly if they retire, if they're a senior employee. So it's common to have shrinkage in budgets. Now the question is the shrinkage the appropriate level, or is it too high? If shrinkage gets too high, then sometimes it can force us to make decisions and ration the hiring of new employees. But as Elizabeth pointed out, we're using ARFA funding in the budget in order to not have shrinkage at an onerous level, so we do not think the amounts in the budget will restrict our hiring of most vacant positions. Now, let me address debt real quick. Again, she did quote the budget accurately, and what she said is technically accurate. However, what she's missing is the nuance of how we budget the debt service fund, particularly based on state statute. We are required by the state of Kansas to appropriate almost all of our funds. What that means is we have to budget all our funds. We cannot keep large balances in our funds. Now that has some advantages. It provides the city council and staff flexibility. For example, in the debt service fund, she's correct, and I don't remember the exact figures, but I think payment for temporary notes goes from, I'm going to say 15 million to 30 million off the top of my head, basically doubles. That does not mean that we're going to spend $30 million on temporary notes in 2022. It means we have the flexibility to do that if that is the right thing to do at the time. That's highly unlikely to happen, by the way, but we have to do that in order to appropriate the fund balance based on the way the state budget laws work. So maybe a better representation of the debt service fund would be in the CIP. In the CIP, we do a 10-year pro forma for the debt service fund. Presentation is slightly different. Again, the CIP is not based on any arbitrary statutory guidelines, so that provides a little bit maybe more realistic long-term view of the debt service fund. And by the way, the balance is significantly higher in the debt service fund presentation in the CIP. So,
Mark, one other thing. I believe we're using more cash in terms of capital projects.
yes, sir. We typically aim for about 50-50 on debt and cash for the CIP, but the manager is exactly right. We're in a pretty good period right now. In fact, next Tuesday, you're going to be asked to approve our next bond sale. Well, you may notice in that resolution that we'll present to you that the GO portion will be only for special assessments. In other words, we do not believe that we need to issue any GO debt this fall, which means that we're using our debt service fund cash to cover our obligations. So that's an example of what the manager's talking about.
Thank you. Next speaker, please. Sir, welcome. It's good seeing you again.
Yeah, thank you very much. My name's Robert Feeney. I'm a brand new Wichitan. I live in Delano, and I came from California, and I appreciate the opportunity to be able to address the council. I would like to share with you something that I had the pleasure of being involved in, and it was a federal program that I think that the proceeds from this federal program would be something very interesting to Wichita. To give you a little background on it, I've got an office here with my business partner who will also want to address the council. His name is Brent Wayne Barkley, who goes by BW. And we formed a business around a software as a service product, and it's a human performance technology that's used for businesses. And we use this with Fortune 500 companies. But we built this project and product out of a federal initiative that I spent 5 years in clinical trials on. So we just took an office at Groover Labs in downtown, and I get to talk with entrepreneurs all day long. And I've had the pleasure of meeting some of the council members here. And we took a tour of WSU, and I've listened and heard a lot of the same thing. There's something that's come up for me that I hear that's missing, and I don't think it's unique to Wichita, but I thought it relates the federal trials we went through with what might be interesting to Wichita. And that is, what I see as missing is robust, reliable data on what citizens really care about here and how connected they are or are not with city initiatives. Now, I'm not suggesting that there isn't data. I know that there's lots of data. I mean, as far as I've seen, the city is connected through all the channels that most cities are, social media, and there are surveys sent out, there's email, there's newspapers, there's a plethora of data that gets collected. But the question kind of that we all dwell in is this data representative of the city? So what the federal government did is it asked me and my partner BW to build a technology. They had grant money of a few $1 million that we used to build an app. Now, we come out of the entertainment and advertising industry, so what we were asked to do was use advertising techniques and marry those with the learning sciences to help citizens connect more effectively with government-backed institutions, where there's a disconnect that often happens and sometimes a distrust. And so we spent 5 years in these trials, and what it looked like was something like this. They're not advertising, by the way. I mentioned advertising techniques. I don't want to mislead. We weren't sending ads. But as we all know, we all grew up with advertising, and it kind of gets you on the in-between moments with a message that it wants you to consider. A proposition, 30 seconds at a time, and then after the third or fourth time, a bag of Doritos falls into your shopping cart, and you buy it, you like it, you buy it again. That's kind of the idea of advertising. Well, when you marry that with learning and communication, you can get across to somebody in a way that they welcome a proposition that they otherwise wouldn't have considered. Like, what are the city initiatives right now that I should be thinking about? What are things that I care about in my particular zip code or district that maybe they don't in other ones? How can I have my voice heard? In the federal trials, this was done with the U.S. Department of Energy. So what they wanted to do was get utility customers like you and me to save energy at home. And that helped them with their costs. And of course, for the citizen, it empowered them to take ownership of their energy use. And we were effective after 5 years of the trials. We spent, actually, the trials themselves were 8 months or so with these citizens. And we got them to save between 8 to 22% on their energy during peak times. So like the hottest points in the Las Vegas desert, coldest points in Michigan, really uncomfortable times to lay off on your energy and your AC, right? And they were willing to do it because they saw the benefit for themselves and also for their neighbors. Now, they collected amazing data, like on what people knew and didn't know about these things, what they cared about, what bothered them. And they could do it in real time like an advertiser does. So here's the thing they didn't do that I would love to propose to Wichita. They didn't turn the data around to the people. They didn't let people see what their neighbors were doing. They didn't empower the people to be able to take actions based upon what they cared about, what they see these other folks care about, or the other kinds of, associations and groups that may support people to see that data. So my proposition is, is that there be a fund allocated for $1 million to engage up to 20,000 Wichitans spread across various zip codes and districts, so it's representative, for 1 year, and collect that data, and then play back to them the data in heat maps. And I'm happy to go into further, what the kind of detail would be about that. But that's the general proposition, and I certainly welcome any questions you may have about that.
Vice Mayor Johnson.
Thanks, Mayor. So your proposition of $1 million, would that come out of the community investments, like one of the buckets that we proposed?
I assumed that it would be out of the community buckets but I didn't want to presume, since I'm not the one running the budget, but I get that you're looking for the feedback on that. I assumed that would be the way to do it. We're in a period of recovery, and, recovery has an opportunity to lift up to zero, but it also has an opportunity to kind of restart and think about how you can re-engage people in a whole new way.
Thank you.
Sure.
All right, I see no further questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Did something break? You're good?
That'll be $1 million.
Welcome.
Good evening. My name is Virginia Merriman, and I'm a lifelong resident of Wichita, zip code 67209. And I would like your help to answer some budget questions. First, I want to state a fact that appears on page 51. It says 25% of my city's money is going to pay down debt. And one probable way the city has decided to do that is to reduce services. And then after looking at the shrinkage rates, general fund departments report as published in the budget, I was greatly concerned by the numbers and the departments. Those numbers and departments would indicate that the budget would be reduced, so money's taken away from, for example, the cultural arts, park and recreation, almost $800,000. The library, almost $1 million. Police, over $3 million. Public works and utilities, over $1 million. And other, almost $2 million. I wish somebody would tell us what that other department is. Okay, and with those expected reductions, what does that look like for me and every other citizen in Wichita? And why would you do that? Citizens want our city government to improve city service, not take it away. And why are you shrinking the general fund when you're getting more in property taxes from us? Our property assessments keep going up. 30% of our property taxes are going to the debt services fund. That's on page 71. Why? What is the debt? Am I paying for others' mistakes or benefits? Why are the debt service fund expenses going to $93 million in 2022 from $70 million in 2021? That's on page 72 and 73. What are you planning to build? That is our money. We should have a say-so, and we should know what you intend to do, because clearly you know you have it budgeted. And City Manager Layton, how can you sign off on a budget that states the city is in compliance with Administrative Regulations 1.2, requiring review of large projects by an internal auditor, when the city of Wichita does not have an internal auditor? That's all I have. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Mr. Manager, we had a opportunity, I think, to find some response to some of these questions. We did reduce services quite a bit last year. We had to cut millions and millions from our budget just so it would balance, giving the projections with COVID, just like every other city. My understanding is we aren't reducing services because this year, with this budget, we're actually increasing the services that we had to cut last year. So I was hoping you can touch on that, and then also talk to us a little bit about the debt services.
Mayor, actually, the issues were addressed by Mark with responding to Ms. Worth's comments. What was just referenced had to do with the shrinkage in terms of the reduction in budgets. Shrinkage, as Mark said, really reflects period of time it takes to fill positions when they become vacant. It's a historic number, so we look at what happens year in and year out, and it accurately reflects the kind of savings that's in the budget because of staff turnover. We have worked extremely hard in the last 2 years to make those realistic numbers so that we aren't to a point where we are reducing services, and that was a concern of some of the department directors when we entered into the budget process a few years ago. So you're accurate. ARPA has allowed us to be able to bolster our services to bring back some service levels that existed back in 2019 before COVID hit us. And then in terms of debt, Mark just addressed that. I don't know if there are any more specifics, but I thought he accurately addressed the issues that were just brought up.
And one other thing, because two speakers come in and commented that we have either cut $8 million or $1 million from the police budget. My understanding is we are hiring 2 new community support specialists. We are funding our police up to the phase 2 or completing phase 2 of the staffing study, and we are adding 4 more proposed police stations so that they could be modernized and more functional, plus quite a few other things. Is that somewhere else in the budget? For people who are reading the budget and thinking that we are, because we've had 2 speakers say that the numbers were different, that we have been making cuts to public safety, but I know that we are adding much more services to our community policing. So is that a different part in the budget for those who might be looking this up? Is there any?
I think that her concern with regard to police funding is related to the table about shrinkage that's on page 40 of the budget. So like Mark mentioned earlier, we budget shrinkage related to turnover. It's something that we track based on prior year data to look at how much turnover there is in departments. So the shrinkage for the police department is $3.3 million in 2022 and $3.3 million in 2023. You have to keep in mind that general fund budget for the police department is around $100 million. And so the way, I cannot speak to it nearly as well as the police department would, but people resign or retire. That's a typical pattern in the police department, and then they recruit employees to fill positions in a recruit class. And so there's a gap between those retirements and the completion of a recruit class. And that's where the shrinkage comes from in the police department. It's not from intentionally holding positions vacant. Does that answer your question adequately regarding police?
I believe so. I just wanted to, because we actually have 102 million according to my.
Yeah, it's around 100. Yeah.
And Mayor, just to kind of piggyback with what you had said earlier, even with shrinkage built into the police budget, there is an increase from the 2021 adopted of 99 million. It would go up to, it's proposed to go up to 102 million in police alone. So you were accurate in terms of saying that there are increases in expenditures, total expenditures for the police department.
Thank you. I just want to make sure we get an opportunity to really explore the numbers while we have folks who are here also doing the same thing.
Right, exactly. So everyone goes home understanding. Exactly.
Thank you. Next, please. welcome.
Hello, good evening. Danielle Johnson from 67214. Mayor Whipple, Vice Mayor Johnson, and Council, thank you for your time this evening. I stand before you today requesting that more money be allocated to affordable housing. The addition of ARPA funding provides a real opportunity to grow affordable housing, ultimately growing home ownership and repair programming. We want to see and understand the importance of ensuring that folks are not living in substandard housing within our community. I have the pleasure of serving as the new Executive Director for Habitat for Humanity, whose mission is to build homes, communities, and hope. Our vision is that everyone has a decent place to live, and I think that this is something that we can easily wrap our minds around. Right here in Wichita, Habitat has been engaged in this mission since 1986, and because of this work, about 288 families have engaged in financial literacy. They have become home owners, and they're leading in combating health disparities, growing and engaging communities, and ultimately the growth of economic development. 621 children have and continue to grow up in safe and affordable housing. And as of 2020, $199,802 have been generated in property taxes paid by Wichita Habitat homeowners. There's no greater example of this than the Rock the Block area that I'm sure many of you are aware of, that sits right in the heart of 9th, Grove, 13th, and Hillside. This is where Habitat has been engaged since 2014, complementing the work of amazing organizations such as Power CDC and Mennonite Housing, who was there before us and investing in affordable housing themselves. You should have a handout in front of you, and it's our redlining map. I'm sure many of you are aware of the redlining that happened right here in our own community. We are the third largest redlined city in the United States, and many times we don't know that in our own history. So please take the time to review the sheet in front of you. What we know is those spaces have historically and traditionally experienced divestment compounded by a lack of opportunity, lack of wealth or generational wealth, access to that, growing health disparities, and most recently highlighted by the new CEO of Kansas Health Foundation, a decline in lifespan. The square you see on the right side of the graphic is the Rock the Block area, where over 60 families own an affordable home. Because of the rise of home ownership in that area, you're seeing less fire calls, less police calls, less dumping, more children playing in the neighborhood, and more financially literate community members, also growing community morale. I currently live in the heart of the Rock the Block area, so I get to see these home developers, and we get to see people become homeowners right in front of my own eyes. My children get to play within the community to see what it means to be a homeowner, and at some point I would love to be a homeowner as well. What we know is that your survey showcased that folks want to see more funding go to affordable housing, as well as the county, who also did a survey, and it shows that they want to see more funding go to affordable housing as well. Time and time again, we're seeing this as a priority. Access to affordable housing, to invest in our people and our community, will make Wichita a better city. Many people in our community are paying almost all of their earnings to keep a roof over their head. When we think about affordable housing, we're looking at about 30% of your income should go to affordable housing, and that's to include your utilities. We know that folks are paying much more than that. The additional funding that you're receiving, called the American Rescue Plan, if done right, can rebuild and strengthen the foundation of building affordable housing, as well as repairing housing, two things that create better health and economic outcomes right here in our own community. Let's be intentional and work to chip away at the growing gaps that we have seen be exposed during this COVID-19 timeframe. From redlining to today, we know that we have an opportunity to truly invest every dime into something that many folks are striving to have, which is affordable housing. If Wichita is continuing to be that premier place to live, work, and play, then let's ensure that everyone has a decent and, most importantly, affordable place to live. Thank you for your time.
Would you indulge a question? One of the council members just got on the board, so they might be asking a question. Councilmember Bluebob.
Thank you, Mayor. And thank you very much, and congratulations on your new position. I'm certainly excited about it.
Thank you.
Can you kind of give me the boundaries of the areas that you're targeting right now?
Yeah, so right now at the Rock the Block area where we're continuing to build, so it's 9th, Grove, Hillside, and 13th, so within that space. But we also have the opportunity, hopefully with land bank opportunities, to look at other spaces to develop.
That's where I was going next. You know, we've got to agree there's a lot of substandard housing in Wichita that needs a lot of attention. Are you targeting anything south of Kellogg?
We would like to, and I think, again, as we look to see what Land Bank is going to provide and having access for ourselves, Mennonite Housing, Power CDC, some of these other organizations that are looking at being able to access that land and build affordable housing, that would provide a really great opportunity for us.
Be glad to work with you on that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, and just want to point out your predecessor and thank her. I believe the last major build was in my zip code in South Wichita, District 3, when I had a jog in a mayor's 5K, so Chelsea made me actually go train for it, and I would go through the neighborhood, and it was so great to watch it just prosper from when it was being built to where it is today. So thank you for all the work that you do, and we hope to incorporate your organization moving forward as we look towards finding solutions for affordable housing.
Awesome. Thank you all for your time.
Oh, sorry. There is another speaker on here, so you might be jumping off too quick. Councilmember Cirillo.
Thank you. Are you familiar with the Stewart's Village project?
Yes,
Is that a Habitat for Humanity
it is.
project? Mm-hmm. Can you explain a little bit about that and where it's at?
Yeah, well, I think we're done. And again, I'm new, a month and a week in, so I'm going to look back here. Yep, thumbs up from team, yes. That final house actually was this last year that was built in the space. So again, a beautiful space in the area. And so that just goes to show the importance of affordable housing and growing home ownership.
You're 47th in hydraulic.
So we're touching all the areas. We're trying to.
And I'll just compliment, that's the one that I was referring to, and
Okay.
Just want to compliment the volunteers on the grace that they showed to someone like me who came in and hung a entire siding on an entire side of the house wrong, and I had to redo it back in 2010. So
Thank you for that. Thank you.
So appreciate everything you guys are doing, and that is a great area. Thank you.
We hope to see you on the 31st. So you all should have gotten that invite to build a home. Thanks.
Next person. Good evening and welcome.
Hi, thank you, Mayor Whipple, Vice Mayor Johnson, and Council. My name is Letitia Klingerman, and my daughter's with me tonight, and we actually live in Stewart Village through Habitat. So I am here tonight to advocate that American Rescue Plan funds be allocated to support affordable housing in our community. I know what it's done for our family by being able to have, beautiful, spacious home and the wonderful people that have helped build our home in South Wichita. Prior to having a Habitat home, my family and I moved frequently. We often lived in crowded, unsafe conditions. The rent was high, and it just continued to get higher. This all changed when we purchased our home in 2012 after partnering with Habitat. Along with building our home, we also learned many skills that have proven very beneficial over the years with budgeting and all of those things that go into owning a home. But one of the things that was extremely important was the stability that it began to provide for my children as well as myself. Growing up, my family, we moved constantly, which also meant changing schools all the time. So when my oldest son, Sheldon, started school, it was extremely important that he not move from school to school. But I didn't really think about the impact of having a stable, affordable home for the children. And he can count on one hand how many schools he's gone to. We can't do the same for how many houses that he grew up in. He's 26 today. Today's not his birthday, but he's 26, and we've been in the Habitat house now for 9 years. So it's truly made a difference. But I didn't really realize the impact of the constant moving until one day, living in our home, about 2 years in, I went into the boys' room. My son's an artist, and he had drawn on the wall. And I was livid, because obviously, as you know, renting, that can be kind of costly. And I was very upset with him, And I asked him, what are you thinking? And he was like, Mom, it's our home. It's our home. It was at that point that I truly realized, yes, this is our home, and it is okay to make changes. In the past, we had only been on a home for like 2 to 3 years. So in my mind, hadn't really made that our home yet. Even though I had signed the mortgage papers, I still hadn't made it our home. So at that point, after that, I began changing things, doing the painting, hanging up stuff, and just really making it home. Still haven't painted over that drawing because I need that realization every now and then that this is home. And that was made possible through Habitat and all that they have done for us to make it possible for us to stay in the home. It has always been my hope and dream that my family would always have a home to go to, and we have that now. Now I dream of the day that I'll have grandchildren sleeping in their room, and I have something that I can leave to my children. So affordable programs like Habitat can help many people realize their dreams. And so I urge you to allocate money, the ARPA funds, to support affordable housing in our community. Thank you.
Indulge a question? What was the drawing?
Do what?
What was the drawing?
So my son, he's kind of, what's his name? Baptiste. That's who he does. So it's a lot of skull work. And so that's what it was. It was a stick figure with this big skull on it. And yeah, it's still there. But yeah, and it's not going anywhere. After that, when I do go to paint the room, that piece is coming out, just to continue to have that realization that this is home.
I wish I had that same grace when my kids right on the wall. So thank you for being the example of that today.
Well, it wasn't easy, but yes.
Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Ms. Burns, welcome.
Hello. My name is Jane Burns. I'm in 67211. Lots of time, many of you are aware that I am a fan of active transportation for health, for recreation. I want to point out, however, that there's a huge safety issue as well. I don't know that these numbers are available locally, but nationally, safety inside cars crashes that affect people inside cars have decreased nationally by 5%. Outside of cars, crashes have increased by 22%. It's safer to be inside a car than outside a car. And one of the reasons that I say this is that I joined the third of Wichitans who don't have a car or are not in a car. So that's children and seniors and folks who live downtown and disabled, low income, a variety of people, and it's about a third of Wichitans. So my car stopped for a whole week, and I had visiting family as well. I found out about bus shelters, how long it takes to get places on the bus, that that buses don't run on Sunday, and again, that walkability and bikeability that I really champion for health, for recreation, physical health, mental health. The third of Wichitans who do not get in a car on a daily basis are at risk. So that was your first objective, keeping Wichitans safe. Just, one way to interpret that is, of course, police and fire. But I'd be grateful to point your attention to the 4-year-olds, the 91-year-olds, the folks who've died and existed in crashes. The KDOT, the Department of Transportation, calculates the cost of just injuries, serious injuries and serious injuries at like $250,000 each. So the state of Kansas has sort of budgeted that 133 people will die. That's their calculation, that's their goal. We need to be aware that folks outside of cars are at great risk. Those are our kids, those are our seniors, and, you know, grandmas. Thank you very much. And the reason this is relevant today is because for active transportation, there is nothing budgeted for 2022. It's a blank column. There's some leftover projects that are going to be finished, but there's no budget for 2022 at all. I have asked to speak to the Wichita School Board this Monday to ask them, the school board members, to ask the city of Wichita to paint crosswalks, bright crosswalks around schools in Wichita. Crosswalks act as a vivid visual sign to both drivers and to folks on sidewalks and bikes that they share the street. I respect Public Works more than I can say, but the fact is that the budgets have been cut for those kinds of markings for years and years and years. Alan King said they started being reduced in 2008, and that's before your tenure, probably all of you. But so I'm just here to point it out to you. Thank you very much for listening. Thanks. Are there any questions?
I don't
ask me
see
a
any
question.
on the board, so I appreciate you being here and your comments.
Thank you so much.
Good evening and welcome.
Hello. Thank you for the time for dialogue. My name's Ann Patterson. I currently serve on the board of Wichita Habitat for Humanity, and I have for the last 16 years. I sit on the state board for Habitat, and I'm also currently serving on the National Council for Advocacy for Habitat International. In our view, a safe, affordable place to live serves as a basis for a stable economy and a stable community. In Maslow's hierarchy of needs, you'll see that shelter is in the most basic bottom level, that people need that need met immediately before they can progress to anything else. As city council members, and in charge of allocating the COVID dollars from ARPA, you are in a unique position to deeply affect lives, as you can tell from what Letitia told you. Housing, especially in qualified census tracts, is eligible for ARPA dollars per interim rule on page 33 and 39. In case there's any questions. As a member of Habitat, I have visited homes in our Wichita community, and I'd like to share some of those experiences with you. I've walked up to a rental apartment where I saw blue tarps over the wall, and I thought, or over the roof, and I thought, that's great. The landlord is redoing the roof. But our prospective homeowner told us that those blue tarps had been there for 6 months, and that was the landlord's method of dealing with leaky roofs. She showed me her bathroom where the sink and the stool had leaked so much that the wood was rotten. She had gone to a dumpster on a construction site and gotten plywood and 2x4s, brought them back to her apartment, took out the rotten wood, put it in, went to the dollar store and put in new tile. That's the example of the ingenuity of some of our homeowners and where they come from. I have been to a trailer where a widow whose husband died of stomach cancer, and she had 3 little girls, and she was 32 years old. As I walked into the trailer, the floor was so rotten, it sagged up and down as you walked. This is a person who paid her rent faithfully. The electrical service could not manage multiple air conditioning, and that trailer had no air conditioning. She had a window unit, and so she would turn it on in the main part of the trailer, and there were 2 bedrooms, and the girls, 2 of the girls slept in one room, and then like at 8 o'clock, she'd cool that room, and then at 9:30, she'd cool her own bedroom where she slept with her 3rd child. In order to take a bath, she would bathe the girls in the evening and wait for the water to drain so she could take her bath in the morning. Reaching the goal of home ownership transforms lives, and she was able to get a home also. We can tell you the story of parents who bought a dining room table for the first time, and that's the first time they've ever served their family a meal together. We can tell you of parents who, because they reached this goal of home ownership and doing the volunteer work that they needed to do, that they understood that they could succeed in other things. And more than half of our families go on to get promotions at work or finish their college education or their GED. Habitat not only transforms lives, but it also transforms neighborhoods. Habitat has worked on the project Rock the Block that you've heard about, and I'll tell you about that. We went down to the neighborhood in Rock the Block the first time we were gonna build, and the lots were filled with brush and trash and debris. We cleaned it up on a Friday, cut it up, had chainsaws, everything like that, stacked it next to the curb, and next day was citywide cleanup. When we returned on Saturday morning, the people of Wichita had come and dumped their mattresses, their couches. We left with piles of wood this high, and they were more than chest high of trash that people had left in that neighborhood. That neighborhood now boasts 60 new homes that, like Danielle told you, that the police calls have reduced. There's pride in ownership. And so we urge you to work with us to develop programs that will increase affordable home ownership in Wichita. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions? You ask all of them.
You made it out easy. It doesn't look like there's any questions, so thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome, sir.
Hey, hello. I am Brent Barkley. First of all, thank you, Mayor Whipple, Vice Mayor, and Council for letting me speak today. Appreciate that. I'm Brent Barkley, as I mentioned, I live on the west side, 67202, and I'm a boomerang after 24 years gone from Wichita. I've seen a lot out there in the big cities, spent 7 years living in Manhattan, New York, 12 years in LA, and a few years in Silicon Valley. I say that because I'm here to talk about the small to medium-sized business entrepreneurial block of the budget, representing entrepreneurs in the city and startups. And boomerang back, by the way, Robert Feeney is my business partner, and I'm gonna ask for $2 million because I know he owes $1 million. So I've seen a lot out there, and so it lets me come to the city and see what this is all about. I mean, all the ecosystem for entrepreneurs, it's phenomenal. The support, all the groups, it's exciting. We've seen it, and I've also been able to see what is missing, which I want to share with you today. I believe that Wichita will not be able to fully innovate in the area of entrepreneurialism if it doesn't take on and embrace very quickly crowdfunding. So what do I mean by that? What is crowdfunding? So it's not Kickstarter or Indiegogo. That's pre-sales where you buy a product ahead of time, you help a company raise some money with pre-sales, very different. It's not GoFundMe, we've heard of that. That's where you support a cause, you support somebody, you give your money to somebody. It's not an investment. Crowdfunding, I'm referring to equity crowdfunding, which is a law that the Securities and Exchange Commission passed a while ago. It's still recent, that allows the masses of people to invest small amounts into startups, non-public companies. And it's a phenomenal thing because it democratizes investments. It allows the average people like us to actually have deal flow with startups, because none of us got a call from Mark Zuckerberg in 2008, I don't think. But now we can be right there on the cusp of startups and we can participate. So an example is WeFunder. WeFunder is one of the top 4. WeFunder is a broker-dealer portal, which you have to go there to invest in startups in the crowd. They've been around for 10 years. And they have invested over $300 million in America, in founders in America. We're doing it with WeFunder. It's going very well, and I'm seeing the benefits. So I really think this is important for the city and for the people to help us to activate this for the startups. It's really going to be a game changer. So what I'm proposing out of the budget is $1 million that will be used to form the Ict Fund. The Ict Fund is going to allow the people to come together into a diversified portfolio and invest in various startups, micro-investing, so to speak. And I'll tell you more about that in a minute. But with that $1 million, we'll be able to attract 10,000 crowdies, if you will, of people and businesses. 10,000 at about $200 an average investment. $2 million. Now, when you have $2 million and you spread it out at $50,000 a pop, you've got about 40 startups that you can now invest in. 40 startups that you can get into the crowd and expose it to America, expose it to the people, give them a chance to invest in a startup locally. Best thing about it, you can do it twice a year. So now you have 80 startups that can be funded at $50,000. At 10% rate, you're looking at maybe 8 to 10 successful companies. We know the failure rate's 90%. And now we've just made a lot of wealth for people. People are now making a lot of money. That's exciting. And startups are funded. That's how we return the money back to the city, the $1 million, with interest, of course. So what do? We have a committee that vets these deals. We have the usual parties in town that can create an alliance, such as Nexus and others that can help to vet. We have a committee represented by each person in a district to choose which ones to fund. And here are some of the amazing results that we're looking at. Oh my gosh, 40 seconds. All right. So startups are funded, innovation's accelerated, more jobs are created. Path to VC funding is much faster, which is very important. Why? Because Koch Disruptive Technologies has invested how many dollars in Wichita startups? 0. But we love them and that's okay. So we need to do something to help startups to get money. The end game is that America, in my vision, is funding Wichita crowd campaigns. How cool is that? Here's some quick statistics. WeFunder has 1 million different crowdies involved. They've put $302 million across America. That's accelerated $5 billion in venture capital. It's led to $5 billion. 78% of the people up there invest less than $500, 66,000 medium income. I got to tell you, they did 1 deal in Oklahoma, none in Kansas, 0 in Kansas, no deals here at all. So I could go on with some statistics. It's pretty baffling. I'm happy to share the statistics with you. It's shocking. And I look forward to answering any questions you have, and hopefully we can get this going. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Sir, welcome.
First of all, I want to say thank you to the mayor and city council for holding this council meeting this late in the evening so we can all attend. My name is Chris Stark and I live at 720 South Hiram, 67213. I live in District 4. The American Rescue Plan can do a lot of great things, the funding for that for our district and the city. But there's a lot of areas in District 4 that are really in need of help. Like we have no community center, no neighborhood city hall. We have some sidewalk issues, lack of accessibility for people and pedestrians and bicyclists, and lack of safe bicycle infrastructure. And I think that's something that could really help us. on my side of town. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Hello and welcome.
Thank you. Got another habitat, okay? So, thank you, Mayor Whipple, Vice Mayor Johnson, and Council for your time this evening. My name is Kathy Leffler, and I live in zip code 67209. I'm on staff with Habitat for Humanity, and here today to request that the ARPA funds be allocated to support quality, affordable housing by funding the new land bank. While Wichita doesn't have the housing crisis that's faced by people who live in Los Angeles, we do have a shortage of affordable homes here. Some of the reasons include our city has an aging housing stock, the cost of lumber has skyrocketed, and materials and labor costs coupled with low property values make it impossible to build a new single-family home for what it will be appraised. And now we can add to this that the housing sales boom is going on, and it's raised housing prices here to something that we've never seen before. So it's a great time to buy, it's a great time to sell, but to buy, it's impossible right now. So currently, the housing inventory for entry-level homeowners is non-existent. So first-time home buyers are priced out of our market. So you and I know that it's life-changing and life-giving when you have an affordable home. For example, studies show when you have a home that's affordable and safe, you're healthier, you're financially independent, your children do better in school, you're able to save money for emergencies, you can afford a reliable car and you can get to work, and you create a community that has a support network, and so you've got a strong neighborhood. And affordable housing is also good for our city. When you have a stock of quality, affordable homes, it's a huge draw when you're working to attract new businesses. It's critical. So workers must be able to live in quality, affordable housing if they're going to relocate or if they're going to stay here in Wichita. And I know that this matters to all of you. It's clearly evident because in the recently adopted Places for People, it outlines an urban infill strategy for our city's core. So I'm asking today that the ARPA funds be utilized to fund the land bank that came out of the Places for People. The new land bank is an incredible opportunity to reinvest in our city's core and create affordable housing opportunities. The land bank will benefit Wichita by returning properties to the tax rolls and stabilize neighborhoods. So we at Wichita Habitat see these kind of impacts every day all over the city, but especially in the Rock the Block, which you've heard about tonight. And that's in the city's core. Vacant, overgrown lots and blighted properties that were uninhabitable now are home to 60 Habitat families, and they're paying affordable mortgages and property taxes. A strong community has been created there. So I look forward to seeing more affordable housing opportunities and the ensuing impacts in our city, and that's why I'm asking that ARPA funds be allocated to fund the land bank. Thank you.
Would you indulge a question?
Sure.
Councilmember Bubak.
Mayor, actually, I appreciate what you got to say, and I'm in agreement. Had a question for the manager. Do we have any kind of heat maps, or what do we have to where some kind of measurement that we measure substandard housing, nuisance cases, or to where, we're hearing about different areas, but I know it's all over the area, and a lot of it we've looked at with the people's places with the inside the 235 ring. What other kind of tools do we have to identify targeted areas?
I'm sorry, the planning director had a conflict tonight.
Yeah.
We do have significant data regarding housing stock. I'm not sure that what we have in terms of nuisance cases and how that's been quantified, but
I was just throwing out a variable to.
Yeah, we as part of Places for People, we looked at housing condition and other projects that we worked on, but we could provide that data.
Go back
and
through
that will
some
be
of that
incorporated
again.
into what we talk about and how we target the Affordable Housing Fund dollars.
Okay, thank you.
Thank
you very much.
I think you're good. I don't think there's any questions.
Okay.
So-
Thanks. And we're looking forward to seeing you on the 31st. All who want to come, we're going to have an incredible time. If you can't come and build in the morning, I'm going to put in a plug. We've got a lunch and learn, and we'd love to get together and talk more about this. Thanks for your time.
And thank you for the invitation on the 31st. Did Elizabeth have something she wanted to chime in with, or?
okay. Yeah, thanks.
Okay. All right, next speaker.
Been up here, but I do believe I had a little bit of time left. So I guess my question is, how do I get the rest of my questions answered since they weren't all addressed? So how does a person do that?
The best way to do it is to shoot an email to the manager, Bob Layton, and CC me on it so that I can also see it and follow up if needed. We normally have, and that really is about any of the questions, particularly if they're pertaining to the administration side, which is the nuts and bolts of what we do at the city. He does. Sounds funny when I say he does a good job at this, but he's very responsive with lists of questions on getting the information from the directors and so on, so we can get that information to you.
Okay, appreciate
But please CC me on it so that I can also follow up and be kept in the loop.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker. Welcome, sir.
My name is Alan Trineri. I'm a member of the North Riverside Neighborhood Association. I came here from Colorado after being a major nuisance in Denver and Colorado over the medical cannabis issue. Was chewed up and spit out, and in order to avoid problems in Colorado, I was allowed to come here to look after my mother and her properties. She has emphysema, COPD from smoking cigarettes. I've died 2 times from drinking alcohol too much when I was young. And I'm dismayed at the issue of money to do things with government while medical cannabis come from Colorado. I was involved in the process that brought medical cannabis into Colorado, and now they pave the streets with gold. They have all the money they need to do just about anything they want to do. And like I said, when I was a teenager, I OD'd on alcohol and died 3 times when I OD'd on alcohol. So I have a real issue with, I'm bitter about the fact that alcohol and cigarettes are legal. And cannabis continues to be a problem. And there's money in Oklahoma, there's money in Colorado, and then I'm continually hearing budget, 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 no money here, no money there, while they spend money harassing and persecuting people over this issue. And, I can be perfectly honest in saying that I'm bitter about it. My father died from Nexium poisoning. He used the prescription drug Nexium and it killed him. It's one of my things I work really hard with. I arrived on the scene of Allenberg's murder when I was in Colorado. I put my little finger in the bullet holes in his garage door. I had been exposed to the person that shot him at a truck stop in Idaho when I was riding with my father in his truck when I was a little boy. So I've had some, those degrees of separation in my life where, oh wow, that just happened to be. I'm really hoping that we can come to a place where we can stop spending money on putting people in jail for something that's non-toxic. And I have a problem with alcohol because I've gone through recovery. When I came here, it was part of the deal for me to get out of Colorado was that I had to go through recovery, and I've done it, and I have my coin. I have my companion who I left in Colorado who passed away had six coins. She had struggled with alcohol years and years and years and years and years. So I'm just asking just a little bit of griping. I'll leave it at that. I appreciate the opportunity to be able to come before you and do a little bit of complaining. You'll be seeing me when we get back to talking about the anti-discrimination. I just came and listened at the last meeting, but I have some issues with that I would like to put my 2 cents down on it, but I won't get into that tonight. I thank you for your time. You know, my grandparents lived here. I was born in Oklahoma, and my grandparents were here. I lived in Colorado, a few other places along the way, but I had dual citizenship between Denver, Colorado, and Wichita, Kansas, when I was in elementary school, high school, so on and so forth. So I have Wichita has a major place in my heart. My grandmother complained to my grandfather, how in the world are we ever going to pay for Century 2? It's so expensive. And what can I say? Thank you for your time.
Thank you for being here tonight. Floor is open. It does. Welcome, sir.
Good evening, gentlemen and ladies. I'm kind of questioning about the first district. I mean, we have no grocery stores, we have no gas stations, we don't have any laundromats, and I was told that there was some spare change that came from the Hyatt hotel selling. I said, why not use that money to better improve our community by putting some of those amenities that we need there? And my question is, you know, why come, I mean, we got plenty of police. We got that covered. I mean, if you want to put a grocery store here and say this is the police food store, or the laundromat, this is the laundromat, courtesy of the police, whatever you want to, you know, this fascination with the police, okay, that's cool. But just get those basic human needs that everybody else got. I mean, we got Amadon and 21st Street. Man, they got a lot of grocery stores over there. Maybe somebody could spare one for a community that doesn't have that. Or even a laundromat, or, you know, a gas station, so you ain't got to walk way over somewhere. Between 9th Street and 25th, you can forget it. And that's sad, because I thought everybody living in Wichita, you know, a city, a diverse city, you know, got a lot of different type of citizens, everybody should have those basic human needs provided for them. And like say, you know, I figure, let's try to get something done. I mean, my question is, when are we going to get something? I mean, I don't want to wait 2031 to get a grocery store. Forget that. People being starved out by that time. Let's do something a little bit sooner than that. Can I get any kind of reply for that? I mean, is there something in the plan? Maybe I'm not privileged to that knowledge. I'd like to know.
So you can, your minutes is still going. We usually try to answer the questions after you're finished, so.
I'm done.
Okay, so we can, Councilmember Johnson, who represents District 1, just got on the board, so he can speak. Or not Councilmember, excuse me, Vice Mayor Johnson.
No, that's fine.
Thanks, get myself in trouble.
Thanks, Mayor. So there was a lot there. In District 1, there's actually several laundromats when you look on 21st Street, 17th Street, Woodlawn's District 2, across the street from District 1, but there's enough laundromats there. 17th Street by Wichita State University. Comment about the gas station, definitely understand that, although there's Ernie's and Valero on 21st Street and another Presto on 13th and Oliver. Could definitely probably use another one, but I think the main focus that I hear from the community is around grocery. And there's a lot in the works. So right now we're here in public comment. I'm going to take it that your comment is that we should use some of the community investment dollars around grocery opportunities. Outside of that, there have been several conversations, some that have been in the news, some that have not, where we're working with local entrepreneurs, nonprofits like Common Ground growers and producers that serve our community in several places in the northeast area food desert throughout, and also throughout Wichita. They actually serve 3 counties. Those conversations are going on, and what we're looking for is funding opportunities that will help a plan that's real, that can be sustained. So it's not a one-time investment and then doors close in a year or 2. Nobody wants that. In addition to looking at what's the groundwork we can lay for the future. So as we do a both-and approach, some investment now to try to solve some of that issue, also laying the groundwork for federal funding that might be available in 2022 through FDA or EDA and going forward. But plans have to be in place for that long-term thing. But right now, we have had several conversations with state level officials. Our city manager joined us with that, federal level officials. There's also the Kansas Healthy Foods Initiative, which is actually working with one of the folks right now to try to get them funding. Hopefully we'll see that. And there's also some stipulations around what ARPA funding can do. So I think this Friday, tomorrow, we'll be having a meeting with another city to see what they're doing, because they're considering that. And I'm open to see if that falls within the guidelines from the Department of Treasury. If it doesn't, then some investment like that would be illegal, and we couldn't do it. So we're trying to learn everything we can right now to make an impact. But all of those who are looking at opening a store, I know I've been trying to reach out and talk to them. One of the issues we found with the property on 13th and Grove is we can't get a response from the property owner. Many people think that the company that closed, Save-A-Lot, owns it, and they don't. They're releasing. But the property owners just haven't responded to any of our inquiries to see if there's someone else that can go in there. And I can tell you there are multiple people who are interested right now in going in that space. But if the folks who own the property don't respond, there's nothing we can do to make them open up their doors for another opportunity. So I can tell you, I guess in closing, that grocery is definitely something that I know I'm looking at in District 1. Many of my colleagues are also interested in trying to help with that. There's no easy solution right now, but the both-and approach is going, and there's a lot of folks looking at trying to do different pieces of this, whether it's a store, whether it's gardens, giving out produce. But there's a lot in the works, and we're just trying to get that locked in right now.
Councilmember Tuttle.
I just wanted to thank the gentleman for his comment, and I'm not in District 1, obviously, but the adjoining district, but through the work of the Health and Wellness Coalition of Wichita and the Food Policy Committee, Vice Mayor Johnson and I have been working on this for many years, and we have presented to the City Council and to the Sedgwick County Commission a 10-year master food plan. Not saying it'll take 10 years, but thinking long-term and thinking about sustainability. So happy to chat with you more. I'd be happy to have a meeting with you and let you know some of the things we're doing and get your input. I'm sure that Vice Mayor would be willing to do that too. So thanks for your comments, but you know, it's a really it's a complex issue, but we certainly hear your needs and are going to be doing everything that we can to address it. Thank you.
All right, next speaker. Next speaker going once. Next speaker going twice. I don't think Diane is speaking. All right, we will return conversation to the bench. Is there any comments from the council? Councilmember Claycomb. Microphone.
Thank you. I just want to thank everyone for being here this evening. I know that you took time out of your evening to be here, and appreciate all of the comments that we received. And we hold these evening meetings so that people that can't come during the daytime have the opportunity to come in the evening. So thank you for taking advantage of it.
All right. Are there other comments from the bench? Vice Mayor Johnson.
Thanks, Mayor. My little button wasn't working. I want to echo Councilmember Claycomb. Thank you all for being here, speaking to us. I know we've heard over the years that the community would love to have an evening meeting, and I appreciate all of you who showed up, and also those who wanted to be here who couldn't make it tonight. But thank you all. Your input was valuable, and I know we all took lots of notes.
And I just want to thank the Vice Mayor, Councilmember Johnson, for really having the idea and spearheading us coming together and having a evening meeting so people can join and provide feedback. I plan on sticking around. If there are people who want to talk more or maybe came here to speak but didn't feel like speaking in front of everyone was something they want to do, then I understand that. I'm going to hang around. If there are folks who want to talk afterwards, I'd be happy to talk with you. Because if I time it right, then I don't have to put the kids to bed. So that, and of course, I love to dialogue further. So with that, if there is no more further discussion, then I will make a motion that we, Johnston, I'll make a motion that we adjourn the meeting.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded by the Vice Mayor. Clerk will open the roll. Members will cast their vote. Oh. You froze the system? All right. By voice.
Yeah.
For all in favor of the motion to adjourn, please respond by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. The ayes have it. The ayes do have it. We are adjourned.